Another vulnerability type that's been popular this year and is now even part of OWASP top 10 is XXE, so XML External Entity Processing. And as we already saw when we did our initial investigation of what's in the code, there are different XML libraries used here. And so the way this vulnerability works is if an attacker is able to provide an XML file, then if the XML parser is not configured properly, then they can actually reference external resources as part of the XML, and doing so, they can read files of the system and even post those files out again to the attacker. At least, so to date, they can do that via FTP still. And OWASP actually has a cheat sheet that tells you for different types of parsers what you need to do to make sure that XXE does not work. And by default, it does work if the attacker can provide the XML file in completely. And so what we need to look for here is the configuration of the parser. And for XML input factory, that's something that's used in OpenRefine, as we'll see in a moment. These two calls need to be present, which is support DTD must be set to false. And then this is supporting external entities must be set to false. I don't know if both of them or either of them, but yeah, you need to configure it in this way. Otherwise, you'll end up with an XXE vulnerability. So yeah, let's check for that. So this is a bit different. We're not looking for data flow. We're actually looking at the configuration of XML parsers. And so what we can do here is, let me just see. So first of all, let's check what kind of XML related types are used in the first place. So I'm just going to say dot star XML dot star, and then look at the name. There we go. Right. And so we see XML input factory here in the back. And that's what also showed up on the OWASP cheat sheet. And that's where we were told, well, if you use XML input factory, then you're going to need to configure this input factory in a certain way. Let me just see. Oh, there we go. So now we look for these calls to set property. And we'll be a bit sloppy here and just say, well, set property, oh, just a second, not party, property, there we go. Set property on anything that's called XML, that should be sufficient. And just show us all the calls to that and show us the code for that. That's it. And so there you see, there are only two calls here to set property. And one sets is replacing entity references, and the other sets is call asking. And so both of these are unrelated to restricting the use of DTDs. And so if there is actually somebody using this XML parser, then it's very likely to be an XXE vulnerability. And so that we can also check. So to use this parser, you would need to take the XML stream reader, and on that you call next, and we can check who this is called by. I'm just going to say CPG methods. So those are all the different methods. Full name.l. Yeah, and that shows us, yes, there are a bunch of different methods which actually call next, so which will result in parsing of XML. And then finally, we can see if a flow exists from, let me see, from an input factory to next. Parameter index 0. Okay, so this is the just a second, the sync, no, we don't need called by, there we go. So what we have here is the instance parameter of XML stream reader next. So the object that next is called on, and we are going to make this our sync. There we go. And as a source, we define CPG method full name XML input factory create there we go, and the return value of that. Oh, I said source here, and this is the sync. Yes, correct. Okay. So, and again, same trick, sync reachable by source, flows, L distinct. We don't care what it passes through. And we see, yes, there are 4 flows here existent. And so, yes, we have an XML parser that isn't configured correctly, and it's actually being used. We could do that additional test of whether it can actually be triggered from the outside. That's the case. I won't further bother you with that. And this as well was reported vulnerability and has been assigned a CVE.